name that everyone in town seemed to know. People greeted him on the road. They invited him to celebrations. They asked for his opinion and gave their own before he could finish speaking. Elias laughed at their jokes even when they weren't funny. He agreed with people he quietly disagreed with. He stayed at gatherings long after he wanted to go home because leaving early felt like a small betrayal. He had done this his whole life, and for a long time he believed it was just how people lived together, by smoothing over the rough edges, by fitting in, by making room for everyone else first. But one autumn, something changed. A merchant came through the town, an older man with a worn cart and a quiet way about him. He stopped at the mill to sell grain, and while Elias helped him unload the sacks, the merchant watched him carefully. Elias had just finished agreeing with the mill owner about something he privately found ridiculous, a new rule about working hours that made no sense, and he had smiled while saying it. The merchant said nothing at first. Then, as they finished the work and shared a short rest by the well, the old man looked at Elias and said something simple. "You are very good at being what other people need, but I wonder, what do you actually want?" Elias laughed it off. "Oh, I'm fine," he said. "I don't have any complaints." The merchant nodded slowly. "That is what I mean," he replied. And then he left. Those words sat inside Elias like a stone in still water. He couldn't explain why they bothered him. He had a good life, didn't he? People liked him. He caused no trouble. He worked hard and was kind to everyone around him. What was wrong with that? That evening he sat outside his house and tried to remember the last time he had done something purely because he wanted to. Not because someone asked, not because it would make someone smile or avoid making someone uncomfortable, just something for himself. He sat there for a long time, and he could not find the answer. That was the night Elias began to notice himself. He started to watch his own behavior the way you watch a stranger across a room. At the market, he would agree with vendors about prices even when he thought they were unfair, because arguing felt rude. At gatherings, he listened to long stories he had no interest in, nodding along, afraid that looking away might offend someone. When a neighbor asked him to help with work for the third week in a row, Elias said yes before the man had even finished asking. He was everywhere for everyone and completely nowhere for himself. Slowly, he began making small changes. Not dramatic ones, not the kind people talk about in big speeches. Small, quiet changes that only he noticed at first. He stopped agreeing with things he didn't believe, not harshly. He didn't argue or push back hard. He simply said, "I think differently about that," and let the silence sit. The first time he did it, his heart raced. He was sure the man would be angry or hurt. Instead, the man paused, looked at him with surprise, and said, "Huh, tell me why." And they had the first real conversation Elias could remember in years. He started leaving gatherings when he was tired. He stopped filling quiet moments with unnecessary talk. He began walking home the longer way just because he liked the view of the old bridge near the river. At first, some people noticed. A few were confused. One woman said Elias had become a little strange. Someone else said he seemed more serious. One man who had relied on his constant agreement stopped spending time with him, and that stung. But something else began to happen. The people who stayed started talking to him differently. They asked real questions. They listened. A young man at the mill began coming to him for advice, not because Elias told him what he wanted to hear, but because what he said was actually useful. An older woman told him one afternoon, "You've changed, I can't explain it, but you seem more like yourself than you ever have." He thought about that for many days. Then one morning, something difficult happened. The mill owner proposed an idea Elias believed was unfair to the workers. In the past, he would have stayed quiet. This time he spoke. Calmly, clearly, honestly. The room went quiet. Then one worker agreed. Then another. By the end of the meeting, the idea had been changed. Walking home that evening, Elias felt something new: lightness, not pride, just relief. Like setting down something heavy he didn't realize he'd been carrying. He thought of the merchant's question. What do you actually want? For the first time, he had an answer. He wanted to be honest, to help for the right reasons. To say no when he meant no, and yes only when he meant yes. To live without constantly explaining himself. None of these things were extraordinary, but together they were everything. Years passed. Elias did not become famous or wealthy. From the outside, his life looked the same. But inside, everything had changed. He gave less performance and more of himself, and strangely, people trusted him more, not less. They came to him not because he agreed, but because he was real. The people who drifted away were replaced by those who truly saw him. His life didn't look different, but it felt different. That tightness in his chest, the one he had carried for years, quietly disappeared. The truth is simple. Most people spend years making themselves smaller so others feel comfortable. We agree when we don't agree. We stay when we want to leave. We help when we're exhausted. We stay silent when we should speak. And in doing so, we forget who we are. But people don't connect with the performance. They connect with what's real. Realness isn't something you find. It's something you uncover. By letting go of what was never truly yours. By choosing honesty over approval. By allowing yourself to simply be. And when you do that, even in small ways, your life changes. Slowly, quietly, completely.